The knock came just before 10 a.m. 3 sharp raps on the wooden door. Calm. Measured. Not urgent, yet somehow more chilling than any alarm. Melissa Carter paused, her hand frozen mid-air above the sink. The tap was still running. A plate slipped from her fingers and landed with a dull thud in the soapy water. Her heart ticked faster, a quiet dread beginning to rise in her chest. She wasn't expecting anyone. Not today. Not ever since Jake had started coming home late. Since Sierra, her best friend since college, had stopped returning her texts. Since the distance between her and the world had begun to stretch like a taut wire. She shuffled toward the door, one hand instinctively resting on her swollen belly. The baby kicked, a sharp nudge, almost as if in warning. The peephole revealed 2 men. Black suits. Straight backs. No emotion on their faces. One of them held a thin manila folder in his hand. The other stood with arms loosely behind his back, like he was trained for confrontation. Something in her stomach twisted. She opened the door just slightly. Yes? The taller man stepped forward, flipping open a badge. Mrs. Melissa Carter? She nodded. We're with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. May we come in? Her first instinct was fear, but not because of guilt. It was the unknown that scared her. The surrealness of this moment. She was a regular person. A high school English teacher. She volunteered at the local animal shelter. Her idea of rebellion was sneaking chocolate past midnight. What's this about? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. We have reason to believe your husband is involved in an active federal investigation. We need your cooperation. Melissa blinked. Jake? Involved in what? What could Jake, who claimed he spent his evenings finishing office reports, possibly have done? I don't understand. What kind of investigation? The second agent, slightly older and more composed, stepped forward. We're not at liberty to disclose everything right now. But you should know, it's not just about infidelity. She flinched. How did they know? The first agent lifted the folder slightly and opened it. Inside was a single photo. Her breath caught. It was Jake. On a beach. Shirtless. Smiling. Hand in hand with someone who wasn't her. Sierra. Melissa's mouth went dry. The picture had been taken from a distance. Maybe even from a drone. There were coordinates stamped on the bottom. A date, March 3rd. Just 3 weeks ago. She felt like the floor had opened beneath her. The betrayal hurt. But the calm, clinical presence of these 2 men told her the story was far from just personal. Mrs. Carter, said the second agent. Your husband may be connected to a broader, multi-state investigation involving financial fraud, offshore accounts, and suspicious travel patterns. We've been monitoring him for 8 months. Her head spun. 8 months? That was nearly as long as she had been pregnant. She stepped aside silently and let them in. Her legs felt like jelly as she lowered herself onto the couch. The taller agent, Agent Phillips, he'd introduced himself, remained standing. The older one, Agent Morris, sat gently across from her, resting the folder on the coffee table like it was a ticking bomb. Why now? Melissa asked, voice barely above a whisper. Why are you telling me this today? Phillips cleared his throat. Because yesterday, your husband tried to withdraw over $400,000 in cash from a flagged account. It triggered an alert. That account is registered to a dummy corporation in the Cayman Islands. We believe he was preparing to flee. She stared at them, numb. Flee to where? We're not sure yet. But there's something else. Morris turned the page in the folder. More photos. One was of Jake at a small airport. Another of Sierra getting into what looked like a chartered plane. Melissa stared at them for a long time, her hands trembling slightly. She had no idea her world had been dissolving beneath her feet this whole time. "Is he dangerous?" she finally asked. They hesitated. "We don't believe he's violent," Morris said carefully. "But when people are cornered, things can change." Phillips leaned forward, his tone softer now. "We're not here to blame you. In fact, we think you might be able to help." Melissa looked up. Her eyes stung, but she hadn't cried. "Not yet." "Help, how?" "We need to know everything. His travel patterns. Any late-night calls. Did he ever mention new business partners? Anything that seemed off." She thought for a moment. There were the weekend work trips. The sudden interest in cryptocurrency. The phone calls he took outside, speaking in low, urgent tones. Once, she'd found a flash drive in his glove compartment. When she'd asked about it, he snapped at her. That wasn't like Jake. He never used to yell. "I think," she began, but her voice cracked. "I think he changed sometime last summer. Around July." "That lines up with what we know," Phillips said. "That's when the money started moving." Melissa sat back, stunned. The man she thought she knew, someone she had been with for 6 years, married for 3, was a ghost. "Do you know where he is now?" she asked. "We traced his last phone ping to a motel 2 towns over. But he's no longer there. We believe he may be using burner phones." Melissa rubbed her belly, trying to soothe the baby who seemed to feel her anxiety. Why would he involve Sierra? Why would she? Her voice broke. Morris exhaled. "We believe Sierra might be more than just a romantic partner. She could be a co-conspirator." Melissa shook her head. "No. She was, like a sister to me." Silence. Then, a new photo was placed on the table. It showed Jake and Sierra inside what looked like a warehouse, standing in front of open crates filled with black plastic packages. "Is that cash?" Phillips said. "Possibly weapons, too. We're still analyzing." Melissa stood up suddenly and rushed to the bathroom. The nausea had finally caught up. She threw up, gripping the porcelain sink, her mind spinning with disbelief. When she came out, pale and shaking, the agents were still waiting, respectfully quiet. "I don't know who he is anymore," she whispered. "I don't think I ever did." They nodded. "We need your help to stop this before it gets worse," Morris said. "We believe he's planning something big. And you might be the only one he still contacts." Later that night, Melissa lay awake in bed, her phone clutched in her hand. The agents had gone. They left a business card and instructions. If Jake contacted her, even once, she had to call them immediately. Her call would be routed directly to their mobile units. The room was dark, except for the soft blue glow of her phone screen. She stared at it, half hoping, half dreading that it would ring. And then, it did. Unknown caller. Her throat closed up. She answered. No voice. Just breathing. "Jake," she whispered. More breathing. Then a low voice, "They're watching you." Her blood turned cold. "You don't know what's really going on," the voice said. "But soon, you will. Don't trust anyone." Click. The call ended. Melissa sat frozen, her heart pounding like a war drum. In the quiet that followed, she realized, she was no longer just a betrayed wife. She was part of something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. And this was only the beginning. Melissa didn't sleep that night. She lay stiff in her bed, staring at the ceiling, the words from that call echoing again and again in her head. "They're watching you. Don't trust anyone. The baby shifted inside her, restless, just like her. Every little movement made her flinch. What did he mean? They're watching? Was Jake talking about the FBI? Or someone else? The next morning, the world outside looked normal. Cars passed. Kids walked to school with backpacks twice their size. A dog barked. Somewhere down the street, someone was mowing their lawn. But nothing inside her felt normal anymore. Her husband had betrayed her. Not just cheated, but lied, stolen, maybe even endangered people. And Sierra, her best friend, practically a sister, had vanished with him. And now she was part of a case the FBI called International. Melissa looked at her phone, debating whether to call the agents right away. What if Jake's warning was real? What if they were watching her? Instead, she drove to her doctor's appointment. Her OB had insisted she come in for a checkup. It was a routine thing, and Melissa didn't want to raise suspicion. But every minute, her eyes darted. Every car behind her made her grip the wheel tighter. At the clinic, the nurse took her vitals. The baby's heartbeat was strong. "You okay, sweetheart?" the nurse asked, pausing. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Melissa smiled weakly. "Just, pregnancy stuff." She didn't have the words to explain it. Even if she did, who would believe her? Back at home, a new discovery. She returned home mid-afternoon and found her front door slightly ajar. Instantly, her heart leapt. Had she locked it? She thought she had. She pulled out her phone, ready to call 911, then noticed the shoe prints on the hardwood floor. Muddy, fresh, and too large to be hers. She stepped inside slowly. The living room looked untouched. The kitchen, clean. But when she walked into the study, the drawer to Jake's desk was open. It had been rummaged through, papers spread out like someone had searched quickly, maybe nervously. A picture frame was knocked over. Melissa's hands trembled as she stepped closer. That drawer had been locked. Jake used to say it was just for tax stuff. She'd never thought much of it, until now. She found something wedged beneath the desk. A photograph. Torn on the edge. She picked it up. There was Jake, again. This time not at a beach. He was indoors, in what looked like a warehouse. Next to him stood a man Melissa had never seen before. He was wearing dark clothes. Tattoo on his neck. Sharp eyes. Dangerous energy. Behind them were metal crates. One was open, showing stacks of cash and what looked like tools. Devices? Wires? Suddenly the photo didn't feel like a picture. It felt like a threat. Calling the FBI. Melissa sat on the couch, clutching the photo. This wasn't just a mistake. Jake hadn't stumbled into something shady by accident. He was involved deeply. She opened her phone and dialed Agent Phillips. He answered immediately. "Mrs. Carter?" "I found something," she said. "Someone's been inside the house." They went through Jake's drawer. "You're safe right now?" "I think so. But I found a photo. Jake's in it. So is someone else. A man I don't recognize. Text me a photo of it. We'll be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes later. Agents Phillips and Morris arrived, this time in an unmarked car. No suits. Dressed like neighbors. Melissa handed them the photo. Morris looked at it, then exchanged a glance with Phillips. "Do you know who that man is?" she asked. Phillips exhaled. "That's Leo Duran." "Who is he?" "A former explosives expert turned mercenary. He's been on our radar for years. We didn't know Jake had any link to him." Melissa stepped back, stunned. "Explosives? We're not sure what their connection is yet, but this this changes things. Phillips crouched near the door, examining the prints. Whoever was here knew what they were looking for. They left everything else untouched. That means this wasn't a robbery, it was a search. For what? Morris looked at her. Maybe for that photo. Or whatever else Jake might have hidden here. The storage unit. Did Jake ever mention a storage unit? Phillips asked as they scanned the rest of the house. Melissa hesitated. Yes, once. Last year, when we moved some things after the baby shower. He said he was putting away extra boxes. Why? We think that's where he's keeping more than boxes. Melissa's heart sank again. I'll help you find it, she said. Later that day, the unit. The three of them drove to a storage facility on the outskirts of town. Melissa had to show her ID as Jake's wife, but they got access. The unit was small, barely a 10 by 10 space. Inside, 3 boxes, a duffel bag, and a laptop case. Morris put on gloves and unzipped the bag. Inside, documents. A stash of burner phones. Several passports, all with Jake's face, but different names. One with Sierra's. Melissa stood frozen. Fake passports, she whispered. Very real, actually, Morris corrected. Fake identities. They opened the laptop and powered it on. Password protected. Phillips handed it to Melissa. Any idea? She tried. August 15th, their anniversary. Baby Carter, nothing. Mel Sierra Jake, still no. Then she remembered something. Jake's childhood dog. Ranger 2011. It opened. The files. Inside were folders labeled. Transfers. Clients. Photos. Plan Z. Morris clicked the last one. A document opened, showing a map of several U.S. cities marked with red dots. Underneath were phrases. Primary target, Kansas City, November 4th. Backup location, Philadelphia. Asset delivery window, 96 hours. Ensure silence, no loose ends. Melissa stared at it. What is this? She asked. Philip's voice dropped. This looks like the framework of a planned operation. Possibly something big. Dangerous. Maybe even, terroristic. Jake's not a killer, she said, backing away. Then why is he working with Leo Duran? Melissa didn't remember the drive home. Her body was on autopilot. Her mind, a storm. Fake passports. Explosives experts. Red dots on a map. Plan Z. What did it even mean? The FBI agents didn't say much after they discovered the files. Phillips was already on the phone with someone higher up, speaking in clipped, urgent tones. Morris kept his eyes on the road, as if watching for something, or someone, in the rearview mirror. Melissa stared out the window. Jake Carter. Her husband. The man who used to write notes on napkins for her in the morning. The man who cried at the ultrasound when he heard their baby's heartbeat. That same man was now linked to a potential domestic attack. It didn't feel real. And yet, she had seen the documents with her own eyes. The locations. The code names. The line that read. Ensure silence, no loose ends. She knew what that meant. Someone was going to die. Maybe many people. Unless they stopped it. Back at the safe house. They didn't take her home. From this point on, Morris had said, "You're a federal asset." That means protection. Relocation. Surveillance. Everything. Melissa didn't argue. They brought her to a safe house on the edge of the city, an old suburban rental, barely furnished. White walls, second-hand furniture, a faint scent of bleach. There was one bedroom, one bathroom, and heavy-duty locks on every door. "You're safe here," Phillips said. "We've got agents rotating shifts outside. No one gets in or out without us knowing." Melissa stood near the window, looking out. No neighbors. No noise. Just wind and the rustling of leaves. It felt like she was already in hiding from the world. And she hadn't even committed the crime. Later that night, the baby kicked again, harder this time. She winced, holding her side, and lowered herself onto the old couch. Her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. She stared at it. She wasn't supposed to answer. But something told her this wasn't spam. She picked up, voice shaking. "Hello?" A pause. Then the voice, calm, deep, foreign. "Not Jake's. You're in danger." She sat up straight. "Who is this? They think your husband planned this alone." "He didn't." Her breath caught. "Who are you?" "I don't have time." "They're listening." Click. The call ended. She dropped the phone, heart pounding. "They're listening? The FBI? Someone else?" Had she just heard from a whistleblower, or a threat? She ran to the hallway and banged on the inner door. Morris opened it immediately. "Someone just called," she gasped. "They said Jake didn't act alone. They warned me." He took the phone from her hand, already dialing a secure line. "Did you recognize the voice?" "No. But it wasn't Jake. It was someone else. Maybe foreign." Phillips came running down the hall. "Replay the recording." Melissa froze. "Recording? You're recording everything?" Morris didn't blink. "Standard procedure." The voice print. The next morning, they played the call again, this time slowed, enhanced, filtered. They ran it through databases. The result came back within the hour. Match found, Nikolai Dragunov. Phillips tapped the screen. Russian-born. Cyberforensics background. Former contractor in Syria. Known associate of Leo Duran. Melissa felt dizzy. "So he's real?" Morris nodded. "Very. And if he's warning me, doesn't that mean there's someone worse than Jake involved?" Phillips didn't answer directly. Instead, he turned to her and said, "We need to tell you everything now. You deserve to know the full picture." They sat her down. Just her, Phillips, and Morris. A single lamp above the table. Phillips pulled up a file. "Your husband, Jake Carter, is part of what we call a Tier 2 cell. Meaning he's not the mastermind, but he's important. Smart enough to move money, plan logistics, and act as a clean middleman." Morris continued, "He's been working with a network of rogue agents, former military, black market dealers, and people like Dragunov. Their focus isn't just financial fraud anymore. It's a domestic destabilization event. A big one." Melissa's blood ran cold. "What kind of event?" "A coordinated blackout. Physical and cyber attacks on power grids. Major cities, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Dallas. All within the same 48-hour window." She stared. "Why?" "Chaos. Fear. Financial crashes. Blame on foreign actors. They profit from the collapse." "And Jake helped plan this?" Phillips nodded. "He funded safe houses. Routed funds. He met with Dragunov and Duran. We even have audio from a warehouse meeting 3 weeks ago." He pressed play. Jake's voice came through, casual. Confident. Almost cold. "We pull this off, nobody will even know who to blame. Russia? Iran? Doesn't matter. Stocks plummet, markets die, we cash out. Then vanish. Melissa covered her mouth. She didn't cry. She couldn't. The man she loved didn't exist anymore. The flash drive. 3 hours later, agents retrieved more items from the storage unit. One was a flash drive Melissa had seen once. Jake had snapped at her for touching it. Now she knew why. Inside were videos. Surveillance clips. Hidden camera footage. Melissa recognized some of the people. Sierra. Jake. That same tattooed man, Leo Duran. But one clip stood out. It showed Melissa herself. In the kitchen. Talking on the phone. Laughing. Wearing pajamas. Someone had filmed her through the window. She recoiled. That's my house. That's me. They were watching me. Phillips leaned in. This confirms you were under observation. Which means either Jake wanted to protect you, or he was trying to control you. She stood up, shaking. Or both. An unexpected lead. That afternoon, Melissa sat with her laptop, trying to distract herself. She opened old emails from Jake, searching for patterns. Then she saw one. A message buried in their shared inbox. Subject line, rental receipt, Storage East. Sent 4 months ago. Attachment, a PDF invoice. But Melissa had never seen it before. She clicked it. The address wasn't for the unit they had just searched. It was another storage facility, this one in Omaha. She called Phillips immediately. Omaha, the second unit. By that night, they had a team on the ground. Melissa insisted on going. She needed to see it for herself. This unit was different. Larger. Heavily locked. Climate controlled. Inside were military-grade crates. When the agents pried them open, they found coils of copper wiring. Switchboards. Power grid schematics. Satellite images of Kansas City substations. A binder marked Final Sequence Protocol. Inside the binder, hand-drawn diagrams of a timed explosive setup designed to fry regional power junctions. Phillips ran his hand down the pages. This is no theory. This is execution ready. Morris turned to Melissa. We've got enough now to arrest Jake Carter on federal terrorism charges. But then. A message. As they exited the storage unit, Phillips' phone buzzed. He read the message. His face changed. Jake just crossed into Mexico. Melissa froze. How? Private charter. Through a rural landing strip. He used one of the identities we flagged too late. She felt a wave of panic. Then he's gone. Phillips looked up slowly. Not yet. Because he just sent you a message. The email. Back at the safe house, they opened Melissa's inbox. A draft was waiting. Jake had used their old trick, typing a message, saving it as a draft, and never sending it. That way, no trace on either side. They used to do it in college, for privacy. But now, it was a code. The message read. Mel. I didn't want this. Not like this. I was trying to fix everything. To make it right. Sierra made choices. I didn't stop her. You were always my anchor. That's why I stayed quiet. Don't believe what they say. Plan Z isn't what it looks like. They're watching you, too. I left the truth in Kansas. Look under the cherry tree. You'll understand. If I don't make it out, protect our son. J. Melissa sat in silence. Cherry tree? Morris asked. There's only one I know of, she whispered. We planted it behind the old house. Our first home. The one Jake grew up in. Philip stood up. We're going there. Now. It was just past 3 a.m. when Melissa stood in front of the old house again. Jake's childhood home had been sold years ago to a retired couple. But tonight, under emergency federal orders, the FBI had secured temporary access. The house was dark. Empty. Its current owners were out of town, relocated quietly, without explanation. Melissa stepped into the backyard. The cherry tree was still there. A little taller. Still bent slightly to one side. She remembered planting it with Jake. He was 22. She was 19. They had buried a box under it once, filled with old letters, photos, and little memories from their early relationship. Jake had called it their time vault. But now, that same spot might be hiding a very different kind of secret. A more dangerous kind. Digging for truth. Morris and Phillips brought 2 agents, flashlights, and a set of tools. They dug quietly but quickly, cutting through damp soil and thick roots. Melissa stood to the side, holding her breath with every scoop. After 10 minutes, they hit something. A metal case. Small. Rusted. Locked. Phillips knelt, inspecting it. It's military grade. Water resistant. He meant to keep this hidden. He cracked the lock using a narrow device. The lid popped open with a dull snap. Inside were 3 things. A USB drive in a black rubber sleeve. A spiral notebook wrapped in plastic. A photo. Melissa reached for the photo. Her hands trembled. It was Jake, again. But younger. He was standing in front of a satellite facility, smiling, arm around a man she didn't recognize. The man's face was circled in red ink. On the back of the photo was written. Real name, Stephen Lorne. FBI. Not who he says he is. Phillips and Morris exchanged glances. Wait, Melissa said, stepping back. That name, Stephen Lorne, isn't that one of your agents? Phillips was already on the radio, calling it in. The mole. Within the hour, it was confirmed. Stephen Lorne, an internal operations supervisor from the Bureau's East Coast Intelligence Unit, had gone off-grid 5 days ago. Last known activity, an encrypted call to a cell number traced to Mexico. The FBI had a mole. And he wasn't just any mole, he was high-level. Melissa stared at the photo, numb. Jake tried to warn me. He wasn't just running. He was being hunted. By your people. Phillips didn't deny it. His face was pale. This changes everything, Morris said. If Lorne's in on it, this entire investigation could be compromised. Melissa whispered, so who's watching me now? The notebook. They opened the spiral notebook. It was filled with Jake's handwriting, raw, unfiltered, and frantic in some places. It wasn't just notes. It was a confession. Or maybe a desperate record. It started as a deal. Move money. That's it. No names. Then they brought Sierra in. Said we needed a face to keep me clean. She went along with it, until she didn't. Duran has no lines. Dragunov is worse. They're not just planning chaos. They're building a new market for war. Plan Z equals false flag plus real damage. Lorne is the ghost. He cleans the trail. I tried to walk away. They threatened Mel. I buried this here in case I don't make it out. I know they'll come for me. But if anyone finds this, stop them. Before November 4th. Melissa read the last sentence over and over. Before November 4th. That was just over a week away. The message from Sierra. Back at the safe house, the team decoded the USB drive. It contained encrypted videos, audio files, and what looked like an email draft, never sent, like before. This one was from Sierra. Melissa felt a jolt. She hadn't seen Sierra in weeks. Months. But there she was. On video. Pale. Nervous. Staring directly into the camera. If you're watching this, it means Jake got my message out. I didn't mean to be part of this. At first, it was just money. Fake businesses. Pass-throughs. Then Duran showed up. Then Dragunov. Lorne told us it was government approved. He said we were part of a black op. But it wasn't true. They're planning an attack to crash the system, create panic so they can sell fake protection. They kill. They erase people. I'm not safe. Jake isn't either. I'm going to try and run. If I don't make it, tell Melissa I'm sorry. I should have told her everything. Sierra. Melissa stared at the screen. Her best friend. The woman who slept in her guest room. Who helped pick out baby clothes. Who betrayed her, was now also a victim. The betrayal twisted even deeper. An inside threat. That night, as Melissa slept for the first time in days, heavily sedated by doctor's orders, Agent Morris sat alone reviewing Jake's notes again. He paused on one line. If Lorne moves early, it'll start in Kansas City. Substation 9. The kill switch is already planted. He called Phillips immediately. By dawn, a tactical team was en route to Substation 9. What they found sent shockwaves through the bureau. Inside the secure electrical facility, disguised in a janitor's closet, was a device wired into the power grid's main line. Not a bomb, something worse. A power feedback disruptor, capable of frying control panels across a tri-state area. If it had been triggered, hundreds of thousands would have lost power instantly. Hospitals. Traffic systems. Security networks. But most chilling of all, the device was connected remotely. It could have been activated from anywhere in the world. Melissa's dilemma. When Melissa woke up, Phillips updated her. You helped us stop part of the plan. But only part. She rubbed her temples. So what now? We need to find Jake. He's the last link. And if he's truly gone rogue, he may be the only one who knows where the others are. Morris added, we also believe Sierra is alive. She's in hiding. Possibly in Central America. She may have turned on them. Melissa's voice cracked. Then find her. Bring her in. We will, Phillips said. But we need your help again. The setup. They handed her a phone. It was already recording. We want you to send a message, Phillips said. Not to Jake. To Lorne. Melissa's eyebrows rose. Why would he care what I say? He doesn't. But he'll be watching you. If you say the right things, we may be able to flush him out. Draw him closer. Melissa stared at the camera lens. She thought of her unborn son. Of her shattered trust. Of the people who might die if she said nothing. And then she spoke. This is Melissa Carter. Jake, if you're out there, I found what you left me. I know about Plan Z. I know about the power grid. I know who's behind it. But I also know there's more. And I won't stop until I bring it all to light. You said to protect our son. I will. But I'll also protect every other family you're putting at risk. This isn't love. This is war. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. The sun was rising over Guadalajara when the surveillance drone caught a glimpse of Jake Carter. He looked thinner. His beard was longer. His eyes darted constantly, as if he knew that at any second, the ground could vanish beneath him. And he was right. Jake stood on the rooftop of a secluded villa surrounded by brush, dirt roads, and nothingness, 20 miles outside the city. A safe house? A prison? Maybe both. Maybe neither. What mattered was that he hadn't run. He was waiting. For Melissa. For the FBI. For the end, whatever shape it came in. Operation Dark Dawn. Back in Virginia, Agent Phillips convened with Director Feldman via encrypted satellite link. "This is our only shot," Feldman said. "We go in fast. We get Jake. We bring Sierra if she's alive. We end this." Phillips hesitated. "And if Jake resists?" The line crackled. "Then we handle it." Melissa sat nearby, silent. Numb. She'd watched the video a dozen times, the one they captured from the villa's hidden camera. Jake had stood at the window, staring into nothing, muttering something under his breath. A lip reader had deciphered it. "I told her to stay out. Now they'll kill her, too." A small part of Melissa still wanted to believe that Jake was trying to protect her. A larger part was sick of lies. Back into the fire. Melissa insisted on coming. She was no longer just a civilian. She was the bait. And she was done watching from the sidelines. Agent Morris argued. Phillips tried to reason. But Director Feldman signed off. "She'll stay with the secondary unit, 600 meters out. If Jake's going to surrender, he'll do it for her." Melissa was fitted with a mic, a Kevlar vest, and a small panic switch that would summon agents instantly. She stared at herself in the mirror, 7 months pregnant, face pale, eyes sunken, jaw clenched. "I used to be afraid of everything," she said to Morris. "But now I've lived through my worst nightmare." He didn't argue. The villa. The approach was surgical. 3 black SUVs moved in through a dirt road from the west, under the cover of thick trees and blind spots. Drones hovered overhead. One showed heat signatures, 2 bodies inside the villa. One matched Jake's profile. The other was female. Possibly Sierra. No guards. No vehicles. No external traps. Odd. Too easy. Phillips signaled the team. "Go. Face to face." Jake didn't flinch when the door burst open. He was sitting at a wooden table, a pistol beside his hand, a file folder in front of him, and an empty whiskey bottle tipped over. Phillips raised his weapon. "Hands up, Carter." Jake slowly raised both hands, looking tired, almost amused. "I told you you'd find me eventually. You're under arrest for federal conspiracy, cyber-terrorism, and material support to international crimes," Phillips replied flatly. Jake looked past him. "Where's Melissa?" "She's safe. I want to see her." "That's not your call anymore." Jake smirked. "Then you'll never get the truth. The truth unfolds." In the interrogation room set up at a nearby CIA-approved site, Jake remained eerily calm. He refused to speak to anyone, except Melissa. So, against every agent's instinct, she was brought in. Room cleared. Just them. And one silent observer behind mirrored glass. Melissa stepped in, heart pounding. She sat across from him. Jake didn't speak at first. He looked at her belly. "You look strong," he said quietly. "I am." He nodded slowly. "Good." Silence. Then Jake whispered, "They'll never let you walk out if I talk." Melissa stared at him. "So talk fast." Jake exhaled. Everything started with a man named Viktor Dragunov. The real mastermind. Jake detailed a horrifying web of global corruption, spanning fake shell companies, hacked defense contracts, political blackmail, and data leaks engineered to cause chaos. But Dragunov wasn't working alone. He had investors, shadow groups that profited from destabilization, weapons manufacturers, crypto market gamblers, and rogue nationalists. Jake's job? Use his skills to build encryption tools that let them operate in the dark. Sierra was recruited to handle PR and front-facing companies, he said. They needed a clean, American female CEO. Someone who looked legitimate. I brought her in. That was my first mistake. Melissa's voice broke. Your second mistake was cheating on me. Jake dropped his eyes. You were always better than me. Sierra speaks. Suddenly, the door flew open. Agent Morris entered, breathless. We found her. In a hidden room beneath the villa's cellar, they discovered Sierra, barely conscious, wrists bruised, hooked up to and for and restrained to a mattress. She'd been imprisoned by Dragunov's men after she tried to run. The final piece of Jake's plan became clear. He hadn't been hiding to escape. He'd been hiding to keep her alive. And waiting for Melissa to be the only person who could reach him safely. The final file. Inside Sierra's blood-stained backpack was a flash drive. It contained the blueprint of Plan Z, not a metaphor, but an actual protocol document. Dragunov and his partners were preparing to launch a synchronized cyber attack on election day, targeting power grids, emergency systems, voting software, and global stock markets. A false flag operation blamed on foreign actors. Designed to crash confidence in democratic institutions, trigger a market collapse, and offer an immediate solution by their own private military network, for a price. Jake whispered, they want to replace governments with corporations. They want people to beg for control. Melissa stared at him. And you helped build this? I did, he said. Until I saw what they were really planning. Then I tried to run. They came after Sierra. They said they'd make you disappear next. He looked at her belly again. That's why I sent the letters. Why I buried the box. I had to do something. The choice. FBI command now had everything they needed to dismantle the operation: names, files, financial trails, and servers. But there was a problem. Lorne, the rogue FBI agent, was still at large. And he was the keyhole. The ghost who cleaned up messes, deleted evidence, and erased people without a trace. If he survived, the rest of the syndicate could rebuild. Director Feldman gave Jake a choice: testify and enter witness protection, or rot in federal prison. Jake didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Melissa one last time. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. Melissa nodded, but didn't forgive. The villa burns. That night, as agents prepared to transport Jake and Sierra to a secure facility, the villa exploded. Someone had rigged it with a delayed ignition device. Possibly Lorne. Possibly someone else. A message. A warning. No one was hurt. But it proved what Jake said was true. They were still being watched. Sierra, heavily sedated but recovering, was moved to a military hospital under a false identity. Jake was placed under the highest level surveillance the Bureau had. Melissa returned home, now 9 days from her due date. She sat on her porch, holding the old photo of her and Jake beneath the cherry tree. Everything had changed. But the worst was not yet over. You have 72 hours. That's what the man said. Then he vanished like smoke. Melissa Carter stared at her silent phone, the blood in her face draining like a tide receding. She was alone in the house. The clock read 2:15 a.m. She looked down at her pregnant belly, now only 8 days from her due date. Her baby kicked. She whispered, I won't let anything happen to you. But deep inside, a storm had begun. One she wasn't sure she could outrun. The first 24 hours. By sunrise, the FBI had locked the house down. Motion sensors. Surveillance vans. 2 agents assigned to her full-time. But Melissa knew the truth, Dragunov wasn't bluffing. He hadn't found Jake. He hadn't found Sierra. He'd found her. The only loose thread in a tapestry he thought he'd burned clean. Agent Morris tried to keep her calm. He brought in a trauma specialist. She didn't want therapy, she wanted answers. Why call me? Why not just go after Jake again, she asked. Because you're the symbol, Morris explained. You're the reason Jake turned. If Dragunov wants to hurt him, he won't kill Jake. He'll erase his soul. Melissa felt ice in her veins. She needed to act, not just react. Sierra's revelation. Meanwhile, Sierra was healing in a secure hospital wing. She was pale, weak, but mentally sharper than ever. The drugs were fading, and so was the guilt. When Agent Phillips showed her the voice recording of Dragunov's threat to Melissa, Sierra's face went rigid. You don't get it, she said. That wasn't just a threat. It was a countdown. Explain. He's invoking Protocol Wraith. I helped him design it. Phillips leaned in. What does that mean? Sierra swallowed. It means, in 72 hours, he's going to wipe out the last remaining evidence tying him to everything. Not just files. Not just people. Cities. Power grids. Whole servers. And Melissa? She's on the list. Jake's plea. Jake Carter sat in a fortified cell at Langley. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't slept. When he heard the recording, he snapped. You have to move her, he said. Today. Tonight. She's under protection, Phillips replied. Jake slammed the table. Dragunov doesn't need to kick in her door. He'll shut down the power grid, disable emergency lines, jam communications, and send in a kill team. She'll vanish before your agents even realize they've been silenced. Phillips narrowed his eyes. Then tell me how to stop it. Jake hesitated. There's only one way, he said. Let me out. Melissa's choice. They gave her an option. Disappear into a deep cover protection program, go dark, be relocated under a new identity. Start fresh, with no phone, no friends, no past. But that meant leaving Jake behind. Melissa stood in her kitchen and stared out the window at the agents pacing outside. Her baby kicked again. This wasn't just about her anymore. She didn't want to run. She wanted to fight. I'm staying, she told Agent Morris. But on one condition. What? I want to talk to Jake. The final conversation. In a private, secure room, Melissa sat across from her husband one last time. Jake looked like a ghost. Why did you really do it? She asked. Not just the affair. All of it. Jake took a long breath. I was recruited when I was 19. First year of college. I thought I was hacking for the greater good, exposing secrets, revealing lies. I didn't know I was building the world's darkest mirror. He looked at her belly. When you got pregnant, everything changed. I wanted out. But I was already in too deep. They owned me. They owned Sierra. Melissa said nothing. Jake leaned forward. But they don't own you. Silence. Then he whispered, you're the only thing I ever got right. The trap. Sierra came up with the plan. Dragunov doesn't trust files. He wants something physical. Proof that could destroy him if it leaked, she explained. He'll send a team to recover it. But if we fake that package, and make him believe Melissa has it, He'll come himself, Jake finished. It was suicide. But it was the only way to bring Dragunov into the light. So they staged it. They leaked a fake news brief about a mysterious flash drive found in a Northern Virginia home linked to Jake Carter. They set the bait. And waited. Hour 64. At 3:12 a.m., 2 nights later, every camera around Melissa's house blinked offline for exactly 2.7 seconds. Just once. Then returned to normal. Agent Morris didn't see it. Phillips didn't either. But Sierra did. It started, she whispered. They're in. The infiltration. The kill team moved like shadows. 3 men. Unarmed, but deadly. No fingerprints. No DNA. No facial recognition. They slid through the dark like ghosts, bypassing alarms, disabling backup power. Inside, Melissa was alone in the panic room, watching it all from a hidden monitor. She'd chosen to stay. To be the bait. A 4th figure appeared in the surveillance feed. Not masked. Not hurried. Just walking. Tall. Pale. Icy eyes. Viktor Dragunov. He strolled through her hallway like he owned the air. She triggered the silent panic switch. Now, she whispered. The confrontation. The agents moved in from 5 directions. Morris kicked in the door. Phillips followed with a tactical unit. But Dragunov was already in the panic room. He'd bypassed everything. Melissa froze as he stepped into view, gun drawn, expression calm. You have something that belongs to me, he said. No, she whispered. I have something you can't control. He smirked. And what's that? She placed her hand on her belly. Hope. That's when the floor exploded. The endgame. Jake had predicted this. He'd built a kill switch into the old foundation, long before they were ever married. A hidden crawl space under the panic room. A tunnel to the neighboring lot. Melissa dropped into it just as the blast blinded the entire room. Dragunov was thrown back. 2 agents were injured. 1 was killed. Chaos. But Melissa emerged, covered in dust, hands trembling, but alive. And behind her. Jake Carter. Not in cuffs. Not escorted. Just standing there, shotgun in hand, eyes on fire. Hey Victor, he said. Dragunov turned. Jake fired. Fall of the ghost. The bullet hit Dragunov square in the shoulder. He fell back, disarmed. The agents swarmed him. But he didn't fight. He laughed. You think this ends with me? He rasped. There are hundreds of me. You've burned a tree, not the forest. Jake leaned over him. Maybe. But now you're fertilizer. The aftermath. 3 days later, headlines around the world read. Russian cyber architect arrested in Virginia, FBI foils global collapse plan. Pregnant woman helped lure one of the most wanted men in the world. Melissa became a silent icon. The press called her the mother who stopped the end. She declined every interview. Instead, she focused on the next chapter. The baby. On a quiet morning, Melissa gave birth to a baby girl. Healthy. Strong. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. She named her Hope. Jake never met her. He was transferred to a high-security location with Sierra, both set to testify against Dragunov's entire network. He sent Melissa one final message. Thank you for not letting me destroy the one thing that ever mattered. Her name is perfect. Hope is all we have. Melissa didn't respond. She didn't need to. The final lesson. Months passed. Dragunov disappeared from the headlines. His empire crumbled. But others tried to rise. Melissa raised hope on her own, quietly, peacefully. Every night, she told her daughter the same story. Once upon a time, the world almost broke. But love, betrayal, and courage twisted fate. And in the middle of it all, a baby girl was born. She reminded the world what really matters. And every night, as she watched Hope fall asleep, Melissa whispered the words her daughter didn't yet understand. The world is full of shadows. But you, my love, you are the light.